Hey guys, this is Kevin from the Elite Academy of Martial Arts. I'm about to do a video on how to make some Kali sparring sticks. You can use the same method to make some short knives, long knives. Basically, you can get up to about 32 inches, 34 inches before the sticks become too floppy and you have to use a thicker type of PVC. So right now what I have is a tube of CPVC. It's basically yellow PVC or drinking water, okay, PVC, and it's used only for drinking water. But the reason why we use this one and not the regular white kind is because it's flexible and it won't shatter like the typical white PVC. And this is 1/2 inch. I cut this to 28 inches because the Kali sticks we typically use are 28 inches. So what you do is you just cut this any method you want, or you can go to the store, buy a 10-foot stick for about $3 and then have some guy at Home Depot or Lowe's cut it for you in 28-inch segments. And then whatever's left over, I usually take that little bit at the end and make it into a sword. So once you have this 28 inches, I take some sandpaper and you sand all along the edge so it's nice and rounded and it isn't sharp, so it won't cut through your foam and your tape. Okay, just sand both sides. You can try to get the inside a little bit, but it's not that big of a deal. So once you have that, you set that aside. Now I have the foam, and this is just 1/2 inch pipe foam they use to insulate copper tubing, okay, to keep it from freezing. So all you need is this. What I normally do is I just stick it in. I find the end, and I take a pair of scissors, and I just cut right through the foam like that. And it's okay if it isn't perfect as long as there's a little bit extra, because you can tape it and kind of form fit it. And the stick will float kind of loose on the inside. That's okay, not a big deal. I have a piece of cardboard here, and I used to not use this cardboard, and I would just tape the foam onto the end here. But what I found is after hard use, this foam would, or this stick would poke through the foam and tear a hole through it. And then as you're sparring, you might have a little bit of stick sticking at the end, and it might go through your partner's helmet and poke them in the eye or hit them in the face. So for safety, I started adding this little piece of cardboard. We haven't done it for that long, so I can't tell how durable it is, but you could replace it with like a little piece of plastic, like a Kydex or whatnot. I'm sitting at my workbench that I usually use to make Kydex sheaths and holsters, so it's a bit of a mess, but I have lots of Kydex here. You could try to use this. I'm not sure how heavy this would make the ends of the stick. I don't want it heavy. I want it nice and light and safe, so we're using cardboard right now. So I just take a piece of cardboard, estimate what the diameter of the end of the stick is, and then cut myself a round circle. So that looks about right to me. I'll just cut the corners off, and then I'll cut a little bit more of the edge on each one of these off, and it ends up being relatively round. You don't have to make it perfect. So something like that. Stick it on the end. You notice it's a little bit big, so I'm going to cut it down a bit. So that's a lot closer. Then what I normally do is I take a piece of the end here and I cut it the same diameter as this, making sure it's about the same width right there. I'll cut it in half, and so that's your end. That's the end pad right there. Basically, I'm going to take this and then this and then tape it, so it goes stick and foam, cardboard, and then foam at the end, and then you just duct tape the end. Okay, and I'll show you how to duct tape the end. So I'm just using some regular duct tape. The materials for this cost almost nothing. You can't buy a really small piece to make just one stick. You have to buy like a 10-foot piece of CPVC, which is about $3, I believe, for the 1/2 inch. And then this foam. This foam was 97 cents. And then, of course, duct tape. And hopefully you have duct tape at home. And if you guys ever been to Walmart, the tape section, there's all kinds of colors there. So if you're making it for your friend or your daughter, your wife, or a child or something, you can make really colorful sparring sticks for them with camo colors, pink, polka dots, whatever color you want. You can buy silver tape to make it look more like a sword. So you can go as fancy or as non-fancy as you want. So right now I have some black duct tape. That's what I'm going to use. So I get a little piece. It's about 6 to 8 inches. And I'm just going to tape the end on. And try to keep it on screen. And I just press down pretty firm, really pulling, okay? And just taping that in. You see how I taped it? Okay. Then I like to push the cardboard is just a little bit bigger, so I'll actually crumple it and break it a little bit and push it so that it kind of folds to the foam. Okay, and one more piece. These sticks are actually quite durable. We spar. At my school, we have Kali class 3 days a week. And we spar almost every single day we have class. And we'll spar for a minimum of 15 minutes straight. And basically one of these sticks will last me 6 months. Maybe even a little bit longer, maybe about 8 months before the foam starts to deteriorate and I have to replace it. Sometimes the sticks inside do break when you spar really hard, or you block, they might break. Pretty easy to just replace. I mean, the materials for this, for just the stick alone, is about $1. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. Overall, if you buy the stick and the foam, it's $4, plus the duct tape is like another $6. That's $10 right there, but you make the duct tape, you can probably make about 100 sticks, and the foam and the PVC, you can probably get about 3 sticks out of it, or maybe 4, and then also you can get several knives out of it. Okay, so the same method I'm using for the stick, you can make knives of any length. You can basically make a 12-inch, 6-inch, whatever you want, just little padded knives for sparring. So I'm going to flip it around, do it exactly the same way on the other side. And just estimate here. These sticks are flexible, they're light, they're very safe. If you want something more realistic that has a rattan core, you can basically it's the same method. You just need to find a rattan stick thin enough to put in here. I wouldn't put a large rattan stick, obviously, unless you really wanted to. But like the Lamecos, if you ever sparred of a Lameco when they had the older models that had rattan in them, basically it was just like this, with a very thin rattan stick inside of it, and foam at the end, and it was a thick foam on each end, and then on top of that they padded it with this foam. Okay, and then they wrapped it with canvas. But basically it was the same thing. We went away from that because over the years, sparring with students, there were a few accidents that happened during sparring. We had an instructor that got hit right on the finger and broke his finger. There was another student that got hit right on the knuckle and that broke his knuckle. So just for safety, we've went away from that. I know you need to spar as realistically as possible, but for most students, they don't need to spar that hard at the beginning. So we use these really light foam ones with the PVC cores for safety, and I found that they have really helped beginners spar without really worrying about getting hurt or hurting anyone else. Later on we actually just take aluminum swords and we gear up with full armor on, and then we spar with those. So those are probably as realistic as it's going to get. So I'm taping the second end on. And normally I'd do this a lot better if I wasn't on camera, but I'm trying to hold it on camera while I'm doing this. that one piece is a little short, so I'm going to cover up the other end. So basically now I have each end padded. The CPVC inside is encapsulated in here, so it's not coming out. And the way you want to tape it is you want to tape it long ways. Do not tape it going around the stick. One, it's much faster taping it long ways, and two, what happens is as you're hitting, because of the tape going perpendicular to the stick, as the foam wants to split apart, the tape doesn't hold it together. The tape just splits apart with it. So as you go long ways, the tape will actually hold on and keep the foam from splitting and coming apart. So usually it takes about 3 pieces of long tape to finish the end. I just start on one end. I start on one end like that. Go to the other end. Rip it off. And this part I try to actually be really smooth, make it look kind of nice. I've had students that use Gorilla Tape. It makes for a slightly heavier stick, which is good. And also, of course, Gorilla Tape is extremely durable. But I found that the tape will last a lot longer than the foam and the stick itself. So you could add Gorilla Tape, but it's not really worth the money to me because the foam will just deteriorate and die long before that Gorilla Tape ever rips up and tears. So you don't really need that type of durability. Regular duct tape will work just fine. This is Duct brand duct tape, okay? But you can buy whatever brand you want, 3M or any other brand. I've been promising my students this video for a long time, and I finally just set up everything to do it. I'm at my house, at my workbench right now. We're not really set up for videotaping, and I don't really have much room behind me. But hopefully this video turns out good enough where you guys can follow along, do this. It's pretty easy. If you guys have ever used an Action Flex stick, this has a very similar feel to an Action Flex. It's not as flexible. Action Flexes are really bendy. They're very flexible. This one has a bend in it, but it's still firm enough where you can block and the stick won't just bend in half and your opponent's stick will hit you. So I actually use this to block quite effectively. It's not as stiff as a rattan stick one, but it still does the job, at least for light sparring. And so we use this one to represent machetes for new beginners and also for sticks. But then when we finally get the more experienced students, when they start to spar and they train their swords, we'll actually pull out aluminum swords. We put on lacrosse hand guards, we put on lacrosse elbow pads, we have these hard shell umpire vests, we wear fencing helmets, so we're geared out, we're totally decked out, and then we spar with the aluminum machetes, which are still very dangerous. So we spar relatively light, but these we can spar a lot harder and still be safe. I still have students wear gloves, lacrosse gloves, but you could spar without the gloves. It would sting your hand a little bit, but it doesn't really do any permanent damage. When you get hit on bare flesh with this, it leaves a little bit of a red mark, but it's no more than anyone just slapping you on the arm. So these are very safe. Okay, so that's the stick right there. It is 28 inches from end to end. Maybe just a little bit over because of the foam now, and I have aluminum, or not aluminum, I have a CPVC on the inside and a little bit of cardboard at the end, and you notice the ends are a little bit rounded and padded now for thrusting. And usually when I have the PVC left over, I make 12-inch knives and 6-inch knives, and whenever I'm making these, I just always have leftover stuff, so I just make extra and I stick it into the bag at the school for other students to use. I recommend that students make their own because it's so cheap and you can customize it any way you like, and then you'll know how to fix it when you break your own sticks. Okay, if you have any questions, please leave comments below. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you like our martial arts videos. Thank you guys.